It's hot. I don't want to move around much. Let's keep going with this because it's easy. I don't have to do any pre-production or anything like that. I can just go at it. Here we go. Ornette Coleman live at the Golden Circle in Stockholm. I think that's in Germany, right? Really long compositions. This is volume 2. It has him playing alto sax, violin, and trumpet. He's mostly a sax player. You know, this is just really good. You don't hear a lot of alto sax. He's playing alto sax. He's mostly a tenor sax player. But the violin stuff is just really cool to hear. Has absolutely no tonality to it. You know, I've seen interviews with Ornette Coleman, and he says he doesn't know, you know, at the time he was making a lot of this stuff, he didn't know what a key to a song was. He didn't understand music at all. He was just blowing. I don't know if he would say he was just blowing, but I understood it, and I believe the story goes Charlie Hayden, famous bass player, understood it and told him to keep going along with it. His stuff is great. He has plenty of albums. He's one of my favorite sax players. The non-tonality stuff, just for whatever works for me. Free Jazz is his famous album, Free Jazz and The Shape of Jazz to Come, and those are monumental albums. Stanley Turrentine with The Three Sounds. The Three Sounds was a three-piece led by Gene Ammons, am I correct? Gene Harris. I get Gene Ammons as a sax player. I always get those two confused. Led by Gene Harris, and Stanley Turrentine is a kind of just a... He's a really good sax player, but he doesn't do a whole lot. He just kind of plays, I don't know, can't explain it right off the top of my head, but he's a good sax player, but just really low key, not very progressive, but he's good. And this is a great album. It has a really bluesy sound to it, and I always really respected this album ever since it came out on the Connoisseur series. I must have got this in the mid-2000s, probably earlier, probably much earlier than that. But I always really respected what they did. I always really liked the Three Sounds. I always liked Gene Harris. And Gene Harris just kind of stuck around with that. Just kind of kept doing that in that vein of playing just... he's kind of low key too, but he's a very respectable musician, very respectable piano player. Pirates of the Caribbean. I played this quite a few times with my kid in the car. Or maybe it's a different movie. I've never seen the movies. I think it's Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer's got an interesting sound. I like it. Yeah, it is Hans Zimmer. He does the Batman stuff, or most of Batman stuff, with one other composer. The Beastie Boys. You gotta respect them. I cannot stand the sexism or the misogyny of this just total bullcrap lyrics. But the sounds that they make, you have to like, you have to respect, or at least I do. They can be jammy. They can make albums where they're just using. I can't think at the top of my head what it is, but when they compile music from old times and make it new, they can do all that, and they can do that very well. I got this at Goodwill for a couple bucks. Have never listened to it. The albums that I heard and the music that I heard from them, I like a lot. Their first album was Licensed to Ill and was produced by Rick Rubin, and it has them sampling music, and it has them playing guitar, and then they came out with Paul's Boutique, Paul's Boutique was all samples. And the one that they made after that, Check Your Head, they started jamming again. And the one they made after that with the Sabotage song on it, they started jamming again, you know. And they would play guitar and bass and all that, and they would sing. They all had different... Mike D is deceased, but they all had a unique voice. They had that Brooklyn sound, and they were heavily influenced by Ron DMC, and the music is really good. This is John Mellencamp, Freedom Road. Couldn't tell you a single thing about that album. I like the song Jack and Diane and the other famous song they got. Every time I play an album by them, I can only play those two songs. I play them sometimes in the car for my kid. I can't... Pink House maybe is the name of the album. Can't really remember. I showed you guys this. It's got the water damage on it. I showed you guys this a couple weeks ago. Jumpin' and Jive. It's a compilation. Don't remember what's on it. Don't know what this is. This is something I must have picked up for like 10 cents at Habitat for Humanity and said I was going to listen to it or said I was going to collect it and just rolled with it. I don't know. Ariel's Pink's Haunted Graffiti 5 by House Arrest, or maybe House Arrest is the name of the album. Can't remember. Here's a Verve Compact Jazz, Count Basie and John Williams. I guess I don't have the case to it anymore, and it is in a Motley Crue Shout for the Devil case for whatever reason. Shout for the Devil by Motley Crue. Their first couple albums were good. Fast as Love and Shout at the Devil were pretty good. Guilty pleasure albums. After that, with that Dr. Feelgood, I listened to that when I was a kid because it was popular. Did I like it then? Yes. Did I think it was, all that great? No. And do I really want to listen to it now? No. Count Basie. Count Basie, incredible big band jazz piano player. This is a gem of an album. I've had this album since I was, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. It ended up in this case. This is a gem of an album. I'm curious of what good a shape it's in. I kept it in great shape for years. I've listened to this album hundreds of times, and I love this. I love Joe Williams' voice. He has a baritone type voice, and I can sing these songs, or at least at one point in time, I could sing all these songs backwards and forwards. Also a huge Count Basie fan, but Joe Williams' voice and that particular album, I just loved when I was a kid. I am so glad I found this. This is an underrated gem in my opinion. Cheo Feliciano, Sentimiento 2. Didn't know if I kept up with this. Really, really good album. The first song on it, Juan Albanil, is a working man's song. It does have the water damage. Well, I guess I can open it. Yeah, that's good news. I can open it up. He died very recently. He was an older fella. This is a 70s album. There's quite a few songs on here I really like. When I bought it, when I found it, when it finally got reissued, I listened to it over and over again. And it's a working class album, even though it's got a big production, and it's incredible stuff. Incredibly underrated. He's one of my favorite singers, Cheo Feliciano, not to be confused with Jose Feliciano, even though they share the same first and last name. Alibaba, Louis Ramirez, same Fania reissue. This one's not all that great. The best song on here is, El Titire, the second song. It's very Latin jazzy. Louis Ramirez played vibes on this. He was also a timbales player. He's he's an incredible timbales player. He does things that you can't imagine. You can watch him live. You can listen to him. He does things that are unimaginable. Willie Rosario, El Ritmo del Timbal. El Rey del Ritmo. I'm glad I found this because it's got a song on here that I'm looking for. ICKS Konoki. I'm butchering these words. This is a 70s album. Does it say on here when it was made? It says on here 1991. Maybe it is 1991. I seem, for whatever reason, I feel like this is a 70s album. I need to get reacquainted with his music. These are really good, and they have I don't remember who the singer is. They did quite a few albums. One of them's called From the Depths of My Brain. They all kind of have the same sound to it. Sounds spectacular. I had these albums when I was young. It's some of the first stuff I started listening to. And on top of that, I'm psyched because I found that song. I've been looking for a better version of that. I got it downloaded on my iPod, but it's got a little bit of distortion. I'm not going to talk so much about the Spanish stuff because I want to make separate Spanish videos. Bach, don't know a whole lot about Bach. Classical. Maybe he's not even classical. Maybe he comes from one of those other eras. I always mess that stuff up. I don't want to butcher it. He's one of the pioneers of music. G-Love, The Rush. Don't know anything about this. Probably picked it up for 10 cents and was like, what the heck. Benjamin Button, The Curious Case. Who does this one? Music. Doesn't even tell you who the music's by. I've listened to this a few times with my kids in the car. It's pretty good. I wish I could remember who it was. This is, this must be my wife's Jesus Wept, some kind of music. It's got 2 songs on it or something. This is, who would have done this? I don't know where this came from. I've had this CD a few times, so I don't know who made this. Somebody, I wish I could remember who gave this to me, because obviously somebody gave it to me. Enroll Garner, Concert by the Sea. Enroll Garner, Concert by the Sea. I think I do remember where this came from. I think somebody, I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, somebody gave me a bunch of burns. I went to a jazz concert and somebody's like, "Oh, you got to listen to this. Oh, you got to listen to that." And I got some burns out in my car. You want them? And they're like, and then they were like, "Oh, some of these are some leftover burns too that you can have because they're just out here." And he was an older fella, and I was listening to him and just kind of getting into whatever he was talking about with his music. Of course, I wasn't nearly as interested in it as he was because it wasn't the era of jazz that I listened to. You know, he was talking about like Maynard Ferguson and things like that. But I remember this being a good album. I remember it being kind of a, not really kind of a barn burner, but the actual compositions themselves had a lot of depth to them, even though they were shorter. Pat Metheny, I need to listen to more of Pat Metheny. Some people say they really like him. He seems kind of cliche to me. That's a nice little picture on the inside. I have a bunch of his albums because you can pick them up at garage sales for next to nothing. People just getting rid of them. B-52s. This is one that I went to the Habitat house one day and they just told me that all these albums were half off. They started out at 50 cents. I paid 25 cents for them and I was like, whatever. And then we have The Truman Show. Excellent, excellent movie. The pieces are falling out of this. I don't remember who does the music from the motion picture. Another one that won't tell me off the top. Composed by Burkhead Daltwitz. I don't know who that is. I love that movie. I watched it a couple times with my kid. It kind of shows you the dystopia of what the world we live in now. And it's probably why I bought it. Bob Dylan, Nashville Skyline. My parents had this album and they played it. So as I got older, I bought it. I really like it. I think if I was to listen to it for the first time at this day and age, I don't think I would care for this album one bit. But it holds a lot of nostalgia. I can sing the songs backward and forwards. There's a song on here that's 1 minute and 35 seconds called Country Pie. That just a song that I can sing. Just The Girl from the North Country, Nashville Skyline Rag, Peggy Day. I can just sing all these songs. I know these backwards and forwards because my parents had this album when I was a little child. Oh, here's another burn that I need to look at the songs on this. There's a few songs I'm looking for that I want to reassociate myself with, and some of them are on these that I don't know who they are. I just listen to them and I'm like, who is that? But it's a salsa thing that somebody, I think I got this in Memphis, that somebody was selling, a DJ was selling just to make money, even though it's illegal or whatever. But, you know, I fell in it hook, line, and sinker because if I can find songs that I've never heard before that people think are good, especially in those days, early 2000s, I was all about it. There's the Spanish Harlem Orchestra. I've seen them live. I think I bought the CD when I saw them live. But anyway, this has got one Ruben Blades song on it that is really good. This is one they had Ray De La Paz singing for him too, which is an incredible singer. You know, he's older now. I think he was underrated at one time. Best of Bachman Turner Overdrive. When I opened this up, it kind of fell out, but there's the label to it since I already got it out. Best of BTO. You'd be amazed. If you heard this, you would be amazed at how many of these songs you know. You know, Taking Care of Business was their famous one, but when you listen to it, like, I'm looking at the songs on it. I don't want to mess up what I'm saying, but you know, when I read them off, Roll On Down the Highway, I can hear that song kind of, sort of. I don't want to sing it because I don't remember exactly what it goes, but Give Me Your Money Please, Let It Ride. Once you let it ride. I think it's that song. But anyway, once you listen to these, or listen to a best of or greatest hits by Bachman Turner Overdrive, you begin to think, wow, I've heard these songs before on FM radio. Here is one, Oscar Peterson songbook. I bought this. I don't know if all, and I'm reading it, all the compositions were made at different times. That's troublesome, but when you listen to it, you recognize all the songs. You can get his stuff on records, which are terrific sound quality, and they don't cost very much because he made so many albums. He's a very straightforward jazz piano player, doesn't go beyond the realms too much, but he's good, and I was psyched to get this because I think I paid $1 for it. Jimi Hendrix, Axe as Bold as Love. Not his greatest CD. I think is out of the three albums that he made, I think that Electric Ladyland was the best. But I do like Jimi Hendrix. I like this album. Gone Way Too Soon. There's just not a whole lot I can say about it because it is Jimi Hendrix. It is good. Maybe Band of Gypsies is my favorite one, but that's a live album. Anyway, I think most people are like me. They listen to it like it was, man, these are both in here. I don't have the cover to this. This is a thing that they did. I'm so psyched that both of these are in here. I think the one I'm missing is 3. This is New York City Salsa. This is Volume 1. Volume 2 I have. Volume 3, I think I pulled it out and stuck it somewhere, and then it got all scratched up. But New York City Salsa was a thing that they came out with at the end of when they were owned by eMusic, which was owned by a parent company that is owned by Disney, but I can't remember who the middle company is. But this has everything on it. Everything on it is good. Just everything on it is good. Just one right after another. If you want to download something, if this is on iTunes or whatever, this is highly recommended. It's all the hard salsa. Every song on it's good. I can't think of one song on it that's bad. I've read through it quite a few times. I've got all those songs on my iPod. It is good. Thank you guys. Bye.